to our February Art at Noon with Master Copyist Bruce Campbell. I'm Kristen Butler, Director of Programs here at the Delaplane, and I'm going to go ahead and launch right into introducing Bruce. Bruce Ignatius Campbell is a professional fine artist and visual arts instructor. A native of Washington, he works from his home studio, Atelier BIC, based in Silver Spring. Mr. Campbell is strongly influenced by traditional realism and has focused on oil painting the last 30 years. He has participated in the Copyist program at the National Gallery of Art for nearly 3 decades, completing original replicas from the NGA's collection. His representational renderings of original and copy portfolio unites epic, genre, figure, portrait, landscape, and still life works. He is noted for his vibrant, crisp color palette. Mr. Campbell is a member of the National Portrait Society, Oil Painters of America, Arts Club of Washington, Black Artists of DC, and Master Art Copyists, among other local and regional art groups. His exhibitions can be found throughout the DC metro area, where he has received multiple awards and recognition for his masterful classical style. Please join me in welcoming Bruce Campbell.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Can we have any better weather than we have today?
No.
I can't believe it. A couple people said they would not be able to make it if the weather was bad. It's perfect. So I'm Bruce Campbell, and I'm here to give you a talk about mastering of tradition, practicing through copying the old masters. And I'd like to start by saying that there is no artist that I really truly know that haven't copied from someone before them. If we go back to cave paintings, if we go back to ancient works, you learn from others, and therefore those skill sets are picked up and carried on through the next generations. So some of the historical importance of copying goes back to the 1400s, where we have Cennini's book about copying. And he quotes, "When you have practiced drawing for a while, take pains and pleasure in constantly copying the best works that you can find, done by the hands of great masters." So when you think about even cave paintings, and it was not a continent where there were artists, and just pass on the information and someone would pick up something else. And at this point, we're in the 21st century, and it's still a tradition. In the late 1700s, the Louvre in Paris, you consider contemporary days versus 500 years ago, when the Renaissance and some of the other periods of time of artists were going on, you can see this photo of copyists actually in the Louvre and painting. And if you look at that picture, it kind of looks like the National Gallery of Art, the main hallway. I don't see the fountain, but the only difference. And then it notes the National Gallery of Art. So I do have to share a disclaimer that this exhibit, this show, this conversation, discussion is not sanctioned or sponsored or affiliated with the National Gallery of Art. And they're really strict about, they sanction something. So this is all me, and I'm not speaking for the gallery in any way, form, or fashion. Yay! What do you think about that? Is anyone from the National Gallery here? Wonderful. So with the National Gallery of Art, the Copyist program was established from day one. Andrew Mellon, who you may know of, actually made copying one of the bylaws. When he built that building and entered his collection, he made sure that artists would have the opportunity from learning from the best. And so the building remained in construction, but that space was held off for people to come in. And at this point, we have a copyist closet. That closet has lockers and actually have slots to put your work in. Your work should remain there at the National Gallery until you're complete. And then you can take it out, and I'll show you in a moment how that process goes on. And I know you probably have some questions. I'll try to answer most of them at the end, but please don't hesitate if you have something that was pressing, even a correction. So, the artist process is not complicated, but it is long-winded. So you think about a process that could take up to 9 months, which would it take me? You apply, there's a standard form. Now everything's electronic. In 1995, there was no, everything was paper with carbon paper, and yeah, it was a little different. But this is the permit, and you'll see the permit here, and you see a lot of writing. Those are the updates. So that permit is good for 1 month. And at 1 month, and at that point, you have to get it upped for another month. And they're very, very particular and strict about it. The guards will inspect that permit to see, in fact, if it's updated and say, okay, you can't go up to the floor, the main floor, until that permit is actually updated. And so I do that once a month. And you can see by this permit, I don't have it here, but I have a picture of it. The Alma Madonna is probably one of my longest projects, over 2.5 years. And I clocked.
Every month you have to do this.
Pardon me?
And every month you have to do this.
Yes. And some months have 5 weeks, and some weeks have only, like February, we got lucky this week, you have 4 weeks that you have to, wait until you update that permit. And at the end of the process, you get the property pass. Now, mind you, you can't solicit at the gallery, and so none of my works are commissions. And frankly, I don't want it that way, because this is my time to learn from the best, and I don't want to feel like I'm under duress with someone. Well, you said you were going to finish this in 6 months. Oh, it's 9 months. Well, maybe it's going to be a year now, because I don't want that kind of pressure. And I learned so much that I want to make sure that I'm not under any stress from doing the copy. So you'll see on the back of the canvas here, when I bring in a blank canvas, I come through to another entrance, like a security entrance, where construction and other people that come through that have some type of materials with them. And so I get this stamped with a special permit. This permit, that number up there, 7832, is unique. And the gallery is up to, I think, 8,000 permits they've issued since day one. Hard to believe, right? And I think my first one was 6,400, something like that. So it's been a while back. So think about all those folks from 1943 that actually have copied at the National Gallery to learn from the best. So at any rate, it's stamped, that unique number. So that's how I also authenticate. I'll make a copy of the permit, but I also have that authentication with that stamp. And it's unique to the National Gallery of Art. So going back to my association with art, I have a degree in studio art from the University of Maryland. And I was finishing up school, and I talked to my advisor, and I said, so what do I do with my art now? He said, well, go back and get a degree in education. I'm like, okay. Suffice it to say, I was really, really, really kind of disappointed and discouraged. So I would do some mall hang-ups and, pop-ups, and I'm like, this is not going to work. So I kind of gave up art for like 17 years. But it was still burning me. Still burning. That's part of me. And so this guy pictured here, he's one of the meanest professors I've ever had. In community college, the late Gerald King. And so happened that his wife is Japanese, and she was having a Japanese performance. At the junior college I was attending, Prince George's Community College. Never knew it was his wife, and he was behind the scenes orchestrating. I was there to help with the crew and make props. It wasn't until 2 days later, I said, oh my God, that guy looks so familiar. That's Gerald King. Oh no. At any rate, he was having open studios, and he said, you know, anyone can come. So I started attending those, and it was one day he said, Bruce, you know, your drawing is getting better. He said, you should start considering maybe the National Gallery of Art. And I said, try again. I said, I don't paint like that. He said, I said, your drawing is getting better. If you really want to get better, start copying the old masters. And then he kind of dared me, and I don't really appreciate dares too much. So I applied, and that was early 1995. At that point, I was actually in grad school at the University of Maryland for something completely unrelated to art, pay the bills, raise the kids. And I knew that opportunity would come down the pike, and so I applied, and it was 9 months later they called and said, no email? No email. It was a call, and said that we'd like for you to come in with a sample of your portfolio and consider what day you may want to come in to copy. Eureka. And I've never looked back. So because of him personally daring me and seeing something I didn't even see at that point, I got back into my art with full vengeance. So I'm not considered non-traditional, but I get, how do you say it? I'm approached, how do you come in here with your suit and tie on? I mean, you're dressed to the nines. Why? How? And I said, well, I'm still employed with the federal government, and I have a flexible schedule. Every other Friday, I'm off. And on those Fridays that I am not off, I take my lunch hour and I take 2 hours of leave, and I run down to the National Gallery, because most of my agents are right downtown, or catch the metro, and I get 3 good hours of painting on those days, those opposite days.
Wow.
Because I became very anal about just doing this. So that picture, I kind of joke because I was dressed up at the National Gallery on those days that I wasn't really supposed to be copying. And this is Judith Lacer. And you saw the earlier picture at the Louvre. The people were dressed like elegantly. They're working with oil paints, so you just be careful. I do make boo-boos, but very rarely. So this is samples of some of the works I've done, and the gallery actually supplies a chair or stool, the easel, and the tarp, and that's for the artist. And they arrange for the moving staff to bring those in. Because anywhere on the main floor, not on the first floor, the main floor, artists can actually paint the old masters. There's a lot of restrictions. First of all, that work has to be owned by the National Gallery of Art. So if it's a special exhibit, you're not allowed to paint that painting. So if it's not owned by them, if, of course, that painting is going to be on loan, or then there's going to be major renovations, that work won't be available. So I'll have to ask, maybe provide 3 choices, and sometimes I get my first choice and sometimes I don't. So again, I set up the easel, the tarp, and I go away. And these are different stages of the various works I've done over the years. So this is the very first painting I've ever copied. Maybe that's why I arranged it. That was accidental. Kristen, that was accidental. That's the first copy I ever completed. And it's Black History Month, so it kind of says its own. This work I actually completed in 1996, after I think I may have put 5 months into it. Case in point, if I had to do that painting again, it would probably take me 10 months, and I would knock it out of the park. I don't play baseball, but what I've learned in that time is just, I get goosebumps. It's phenomenal from all these various artists from different periods that none of these original painters ever had that option. They were in their period of time. So I get this wealth of knowledge for 500 years. It's just, it's unbelievable. So when you look at the original, that's kind of great. My photo isn't that great, so I have someone that's probably going to take another painting. I think mine matches a little bit more to the original.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that tilt in the head is the first thing I see. And I didn't capture that. And I beat myself up because I didn't. Once I take them off the floor of the National Gallery, I never touch them. And I use the analogy, Valentine's Day is coming up, right? Some folks are going to receive flowers or cards. I'd like to ask, would any of you rather have a beautiful dozen long stem or a beautiful Hallmark card delivered? Any comparison?
Real flowers.
Well, that's why I can't possibly, even with the best photos, who knows, the National Gallery's photo may be a little off. But the bottom line is, my goal is to be as close to the original as I possibly can be. So this one, again, the time of frame it took, but again, a real amateur, just standing in front of a painting. And when I started a painting, I never used any medium but paint. So I never used a grid or charcoal or pencil. I go directly in with the brush and just go away at it. And then that direct observation of the original. And I've been told that an artist should be looking at his subject much more than they ever look at the work of art on the wall. Kind of makes sense. So the painting I'm kind of comparing that was influenced is the one I did of the still life, and the flowers in it, and how the composition and why it became important to me. And thinking back, that was a more recent painting, my original, but I remember the flowers I captured in that original, set up a vase, and then put those elements in for my own personal work.
This
Yeah.
is an original piece, not a
Yes,
copy?
yes.
Oh, okay.
So half are copies and half are influencers through my copying.
Okay.
So you see here, I'm kind of putting like a cartoon, but again, I'm drawing with paint and masking in. So this is a Van Eyck, and it's the meeting of Abraham and Melchizedek. And you can see the painstaking weeks and weeks and weeks, how it's starting to materialize. Very interesting thing about this particular painting, the one that's on the wall of the National Gallery of Art is a cartoon, which is a preliminary sketch. The original tapestry is at the Ringling Brothers, Mabel, and the original was supposed to have been a tapestry, is at the Ringling Gallery down in Sarasota, Florida. And I was floored. I went down and said, I copied this. I copied this. And it's huge. I would say it takes up probably 12 feet. And it would touch the ceiling here in this space, which is, by the way, a beautiful, beautiful space. So to get a little idea, so mine was actually 2 inches larger than the original, because again, there's a laundry list of rules. It can't be the same size. It has to be 2 inches larger or smaller than the original. And secondly, it can't exceed 40 inches, no matter how large the original is. So imagine trying to scale down to a manageable, and again, I'm so particular, I want that replica to be as close to the original as I possibly can. So I'll scale it, even if it's in metric, to try to capture that same kind of scale and that same size. And here's work in progress. So see from the first how I'm going through, and I'm looking at it, and I have my ups and down moments. Sometimes I'm really encouraged, and some days, which is typically about 5 hours, why did I even come in here? 5 steps back, nothing's working. But then when I come back afresh the next week, I did do some differences, but it's your mindset. So yeah, I look at this right now. That looks at pole here, column, looks a little skewed. But the fact that this has, I think there's 18 portraits in this one painting. If you look around, the horse, if you go counterclockwise, you got the horse, you got the horseman, you have the 2 guards, you have the chair, you have another chair, you have another chair, there's a knocker up there, that's a lion. You come around, you've got this character with the braid, you've got this lady, you've got this person, you've got this person, you've got a character back there, you've got Abraham, you've got this character, these 2 characters, this character. Where's the lion? There's all these portraits I have to do. And I try to capture each and every one of them. So you count all the faces and how long that's going to take. You think about any of the artists here, how long does it take you to do a portrait?
Hours.
So one little area, and I work the whole area. You see, I'm not focused on one area. I try to do the whole during that period of time. And voila! Here we are, the original and my replica.
Wonderful.
And I didn't bring that. Why didn't I bring that today? I don't know. Because I have 30. and 2 of them on display right now, other places. Oh, there's something else. If I was to do it again, I used canvas. The original was on linen. Wasn't on linen. Mine's on linen. The original was on wood panel. Yes.
When you make your selections, do you make it based on, I want to learn something from this particular painting, or just because you like the painting?
Both. All of the above. Yeah, it'll capture me. You know, and I get in different periods. 5 years I'm doing this theme. And I don't even realize that I'm kind of gravitating like the Northern Baroque. Why Northern Baroque? Why, So to your question, yes. I have a certain interest, or that painting just pops out at me, and in the selection process. If it's my first choice, again, it could possibly be my 3rd choice because that painting is not going to be available.
Have you ever had a painting go on loan while you're working on it?
Absolutely.
Wow.
5 times. What was the first one? The Last Supper by Sebastiano Ricci. And it came back from loan, and they put it back on the floor. 4 years later, it was back to his home, and I was able to recopy it. In fact, something's coming up now. They're constantly doing renovations to the National Gallery of Art. And the galleries with some of the far west wing galleries have been closed for major renovations. I got notice a month ago that I'm in the Impressionist section right now. It's going to be under major renovations. So if you want to go down and see some Impressionists, make sure you do it before the 19th, because after that, God knows when you're going to be able to see those Impressionist works. So you wouldn't be able to see those works in another period. This is the album Madonna again, and that was the longest painting that I've ever painted. And there were several challenges, but I think the biggest one was to make sure that Tundo frame didn't roll. So I actually had a friend help me to make this wood panel. Because of the scale and the size of the paintings, I didn't exceed 40 inches, but I made it a little bit larger than the original size. I think it's 37 and some change. And again, you can see my process. Again, freehand, trying to go around and curve around and curve around and curve around to make this round on this square. And you can see my beginning, and some of the major challenges were trying to match those pigments, which in this case is an ultramarine blue that Raphael used. And ironically, that doesn't exist anymore. I wonder why.
Not like you can go pick number 3.
500-year-old paint, right? I use no less than, so I bought a tube of what they consider Renaissance type ultramarine blue. $78. I can't afford $78 paint tube, but I did it. I bought it. It wasn't even close.
No.
Seriously.
Sometimes.
They actually, I was able to send it back, and I took an amalgamation of Prussian, cobalt, 3 different types of ultramarine, and started throwing those things together
Of course, yeah, you have to.
in order to try to match the brilliance. It's just a beauty in that original. And then some of the other little, you can barely see it, but there's a gold trim around the Madonna's rim, or what do you call it? Him, there you go. And then there's a halo of gold on her, and on the image of Jesus. And yeah, just all of these details. And I don't see all of those things at the beginning. Sometimes I don't see those things near the end. And I'm looking, like, my goodness, look at the details in this painting. Raphael has 5 communities in the background. I had to do all of those before I would even consider the foreground, the figures, and the plant life. So, I wish I had a little pointer. But if you look on either side, there's 2 communities on the left here, and there's 3 on the right. If you have the opportunity to go down to the National Gallery, I really recommend looking at that, examining it. There's a couple with a picnic in this area right here. There are horsemen, maybe soldiers or something, on horseback here. There's a fortress up there.
Really?
It's like, why? How? I thought I was able. But there was a reason for him doing that, and he did. So my goal, and you can see my feeble attempt to get as close as I could. And I probably could have taken that, brought this today, but some things religious, even though you go to the gallery and see them, I don't make it a controversial decision. And plus I haven't framed it. And I've got some estimates for a frame that's kind of decorative like this.
Round. more than
Did I
a
mention
shade.
5 kids, 4 grand? For a piece of
No, it's
painting?
tuition,
No.
yeah.
Any woodsmiths out here or carpenters? So anyway, the comparison.
That's awesome.
Not bad for an amateur, huh? No, Raphael, that is.
I think that's the best piece. That's the best painting in the whole museum, I think.
Really?
Mhm.
It's got a lot of character. So this painting I selected, it's Thomas Moran's, and it's Green River Cliffs, Wyoming. A lot of little anecdotes about this, and I don't find out until bits and pieces as I'm copying. First of all, Moran was one of those artists that would go out to the West and do these huge scenes. Anyone know some of the other more famous
Yeah.
Hudson River School guys? So anyway, he was
Grand
one of
Canyon
them.
of the Yellowstone.
And this, so Ansel Adams was the photographer, but these were the guys that were out there doing the wilderness. So this was commissioned by the railroad. I wanted to have people travel. And so he did it, but it's a mockery because he has, I think there's 17 horses and I think 15 native riders on the horseback. And then in the far back, you'll see teepees and smokestacks. The way it was, and he was somewhat familiar with that period. So here's the railroad coming through. He didn't put anything but the railroad depot. He put in what he felt. Ironically, going back to even Peter Paul Rubens with the Melchizedek, he actually mocked that his work was going to become a tapestry. That he was doing this painting, but that wasn't the end results. He was doing this painting so that they could make a tapestry out of it. So his work was collateral. So in this case, yeah, artists put those little anecdotes into even commissions. Can you believe that?
There's
How
something
dare you.
to that. I mean, it's more so the truth.
So I was looking for another painting. I completed my previous work. I was looking for a new work. And I came to that gallery. It was late in the day. And the light that was hitting that, even though all the filters on the roof, this painting was radiating. And I said, you know what, let me see if I can go copy that. So I selected this painting. And the challenge was just getting that light hitting those mountains. In that particular time, so I would have never gotten that light in the morning. It was late afternoon, and so in the mornings my days were lousy because I didn't have the same light source. But I muddled through. So talking about scale, you see the original. And I was sharing with Kristen a little earlier, the frame was so elaborate, it's probably half, maybe only half the price of the original work. It's written in Arabic, so everything goes counterclockwise, and the whole thing, the National Gallery has a research team. Actually, they're going to decipher all of that on that frame. And apparently this frame was made specifically for this painting. So it's called The Favorite of the Emir. And I did my own mockery of it with cohorts of the Emir, which is Gerald King's in the center, myself, and 2 other artists. And instead of the women being entertained, we are being entertained by the women.
What's the title?
Cohorts of the Emir. And they couldn't believe I did that, my friends. And so I kind of gave homage to my mentor, Gerald King, in this painting.
It's like
But think about that scale, and how does he condense all of that detail into something that small? Who knows? You just do it. Super duper. So I guess you kind of get the feeling that I'm personable. So people always come up to the copyist, and that's one of the reasons why we copy, so that people can see an artist up close and personal and see that it's not in magic. And I have people that come back constantly just to see, especially in the area. There was a teacher from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Didn't know him from Adam. Every year he would have a field trip, and he would make sure he found me to show his class. Can you believe that? And it's been 4 years. He said, "Oh, Mr. Campbell," he said, "my kids go back, they've taken pictures of you, and they go back for his class." Isn't that amazing? How you influence people.
it's cool.
So these are complete strangers, students in the metro area or students from states far away. And most of them will engage me, and in the middle there is actually me being connected with the National Gallery doing, what's the name of the program? Anyway, where I came in and I sketched this, and the kids were sketching it, and I was breaking down to everything into basic shapes. Oh, this gal here on the far was my personal training. I was working at the National Archives, and she said, Mr. Campbell, you gotta lose weight. You gotta get some tone. So I said, I gotta paint. I gotta go paint. She says, okay, but you gotta come to the gym the next week. But again, it's just a delight to meet people, and some copyists are a little more, introverted or shy, or they're really tunnel vision. All they want to do is paint with that limited time. But I said, I'm here, it's a gift, let me share. So again, these are elements of some of the work you see here of how these paintings of mine were influenced by the masters. The luminosity in this painting, the flight into Egypt, I completed a painting of Egypt, which actually going to be in display next month. At the Strathmore, to get the pyramids and the look like that intense heat in a desert. And there's a couple of dromedaries in the back, but just emphasizing that light coming through and the layers of glazing and scumbling to lay down paint and then remove paint and then surround the paint. And sometimes I wonder myself how do I go about doing it. And this painting is right behind us. And I had mentioned about the painting maybe alone. So actually, the large painting of the Emir was owned by the Naval Academy. And it was there for decades as a loan. And the year before I was able to copy this, the National Gallery and their lawyers got together with the Naval Academy in Annapolis and their lawyers and made a gentleman's agreement to make it part of the permanent collection. So prior to that, no copyists had ever had the opportunity to copy this painting. This one, likewise, was in the collection of, anyone heard of the Corcoran? The Corcoran went under or whatever. At any rate, this became the possession of the National Gallery of Art. Maybe a 99-year lease, but yeah. So I was able to copy this one and also this painting, which was part of the collection of the Corcoran Gallery of Art, which honestly, I don't remember seeing either one of these paintings when I visited there. I do know at the National Portrait Gallery, there's other paintings by Benjamin Brooks, who lived in Washington, D.C., near Lafayette Park, across from the White House. He had a studio there. But this family he knew personally from Virginia, central southern Virginia. And so the pastoral visit, and if you see this painting just captivated me. So it's got to be a Sunday afternoon. The country speaker, he goes around to little towns and villages. He's at the table. He's supposed to be a reverend, right? Respected. And so he's going to eat the meal first. And I don't know if anyone else has actually curated this, but this just captivated me because my large family. And I think the whole painting, if you can see, is focused on one thing. That little teeny piece of bread right there. And this is Bruce Campbell's narrative. This spoiled little brat, the young one, was hungry, couldn't wait. Do you see a little piece of biscuit? Is it removed? Wait a minute, there's something on the floor. How did that get there? So I think the whole theme of this is that little girl the youngest child, went, pinched off the biscuit, and look at everyone's facial expressions. The mom, she's not very happy. The sister says, oh, you're gonna get it now. The brothers, he's looking at his sister. He won't even look at his baby sister. And then the dad. But guess who her favorite is? Dad. Dad is consoling her. So I don't think he's gonna play the banjo. What do you think he's gonna play the banjo? I think it's gonna be maybe after supper. And then he has his money box. He's gonna help the coffers for the top hat and the Bible reading. The other thing, this family looks like they're pretty comfortable, right? In the scheme of things, they've got cupboard, they've got a poster from the circus, probably Ringling Brothers. Do you see the circus, the clown? That light coming through. You can almost tell what season it is because there's some fruit up here drying, and here's a package of probably fall apples. It's going to be raining, or it has rained, as we can see with the umbrella. And then in here, you see the kettle. And I had never seen one of those types of fire pits like that before. But if you ever have the opportunity to go to the Sandy Spring Museum, they have one of these fireplaces, and there's a handle that you use on the outside to put your pot in. Anyone familiar with that? I had no clue. I painted it and didn't have a clue what it was about. So at any rate, and you can see some of the ambers here. And then the kitty cat, and yeah, it's just a fascinating painting to complete. And I've enjoyed every single painting that I've worked on so far. Again, this is my steps in this one. So I'd say maybe 10 to 12 years ago, I started to change my approach where I don't use any preliminary sketching. I squint my eyes and I just look at the basic shapes, light and dark. So give me a basic shape. Circle.
Eggplant.
Eggplant.
Eggplant?
Oval.
Real basic. Look, that I can teach 3-year-olds. They know circles. Triangle. Square.
Rectangle.
Now, think about light and dark. Okay? So if you look at this and squint your eyes, look at the original replica, where do you see light and darks? So that you come up with no more than 5, including light and dark shapes for the entire composition. Everything that's inside the frame. I'll help you. A big kind of, would you say kind of a dark triangular shape? This whole mass right here. And then here, kind of a dark triangular shape. Kind of a light ovular shape or triangular shape. Would you kind of agree? And then that focus in the center. So that's how I approach this painting. And then from there, just going further and further and further, long before I even saw or understood what was kind of going on in this painting. Just getting those basic shapes in. From the 5 basic shapes to 10 basic shapes, to 15, to 25, 30. The portraits are usually the last things I complete on a painting. If you're interested, I also did a talk at the National Gallery of Art, so it was sanctioned, that I did almost 4 years to the date. No, 5 years, 2019, to the date at the National Gallery of Art. Shy a month, because this is April. This is March, the 11th, and today is the 10th. But at any rate, I welcome you to go to the National Gallery's site, and you'll see something similar to this, but it was an interview. I'm not the only one talking. And I'm probably going to repeat some of the same things, but I think in 5 years I've learned a few things.
So,
Here's some of my information. What else did I want to say? Oh, again, I'd be remiss in, I don't know what I did, but, so at the gallery, they have all various periods, and one of my personal favorites is Henry O. Tanner. And I know for a fact that one of his works used to be there in the Whistler section. I don't see it now. And then they have another painting, and it's not on display. But I would love to have the opportunity to, if you don't know him, he was considered one of the leading African-American painters. He studied under Thomas Eakins in the US, traveled abroad, and he actually studied with Constant. So ironically, he was in a group of artists. I haven't had that opportunity yet, but who knows what tomorrow brings. Well, I work with copyists, so hey, I guess that's the second best way to learn from the best. But the bottom line is, when they put one of his works, I think that's going to be one of my goals, to be able to copy that painting.
And your player?
No, it's not. Yeah, that one isn't owned by the National Gallery. And I don't know how likely it is they'll have a retrospective of his work. Maybe it'll go on loan someplace. Maybe that's where it is now. It's on loan for some other museum. So again, got a little QR code here if you're interested for my Instagram, but other information about myself. And at that point, I'll open it up to any questions, comments. Yes?
You had mentioned that you were at the drawing group and your teacher was like, oh, your drawings are getting really good. And then you approached the gallery. What did you use for a portfolio? Did you have paintings also for your, or you showed them drawings and they were like, really?
Charcoal, color. I had some lithographies,
Okay.
stone lithographies. I did some sculpture, but I didn't bring that in. So, so I really fell in love with sculpture at the University of Maryland, undergrad, and also stone lithography with a professor, Lipinski. And I love that. John actually took some pictures of some of those works. I didn't have any of those cataloged. I recommend any of the artists out here, make sure you catalog stuff. No one knows. And your kids are not going to keep it. Yeah, so my portfolio, I had some colored pencils, some pen ink, but paintings were part of my portfolio. I wasn't satisfied with them, they were lousy. Yes?
Among the copyists, are there any watercolor copyists working in watercolor?
Let's put it this way. Any liquid medium, but when you think about the main floor, there are no watercolors on that main floor.
That's why I asked. Exactly.
But I've known artists, what was his name, Yuri? He used acrylic paints instead of oils, and got some really, really good results. And the reason was he was allergic to any of the oil-based mediums and the pigment. But he did some wonderful, wonderful work using acrylic. Next question. Oh, John.
do they have sculpture or kind of like anything other than oils and acrylics at the copyist program? Can you do sculpture?
No, I'm not familiar with any. It would be too cumbersome.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sculptures in those galleries. So a couple of times I wanted to paint a painting, but it was in a restricted area. By that I mean the gallery was too small. That little was too small. Like the one I'm working on now, it's called Hide and Seek by Tussaud. was probably in my 20s when I fell in love with that painting. It was in the French section, but it was in a very small gallery. That's off limits because it's just too cumbersome for this to set up all of the artist's materials, and then it's there for the visitors, not for the copyist. So fast forward with that one that I'm working on now, it went to the East Wing. They had a show there called Small French Paintings. It was there for either 8 to 10 years.
Right.
COVID happened. I come back. It's in the main gallery. I said, please, 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 can I copy it? Bad mistake. I'm fast, I talk a lot, but I put about 115 hours into that painting. The way I'm gauging it, I'm maybe 2/3 finished. So I thought maybe I'd be finished by, I don't know, maybe Easter, maybe Memorial Weekend. I can still see me working on that painting. Oh, did I mention? The Impressionists are going to be closed down.
Yeah.
5 to 6 months. So it's going to be at least 5 to 6 months before I even get back in front of that painting. So, c'est la vie.
It'll be back.
It'll be back.
No modern works? Modern works?
They're over in the East Wing, and that doesn't have the same provisions,
Really?
unless it's a special show. And then typically it's limited time, so yeah, no contemporary, no modern,
No access to it.
no. Only special shows periodically, yeah. And typically they're not going to be in a location where, yes, oh, young lady here, she's asked 3 times, and I met her before I came in today.
Oh, do you have a specific like art period that you feel like you learned from the most?
From 500 years ago to 100 years ago. You name it. Trying to absorb all of these from every single period. Like I said, I'm kind of homed in on certain. I love nature. And when you're playing air painters out there, I love playing air, but the insects and the nets, and no north light, right? I mean, that sun's going to move whether you want it or not. So I like doing those there. Northern Baroque, Renaissance, and contemporary in the sense that they were some of the Impressionists. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Do you have to pay for your certificates monthly?
No, there is no exchange of money either way. No financial exchange whatsoever. It was established by Andrew Mellon. The copyists accommodated. I don't receive anything, nor do they receive anything from me. It's not an even exchange.
You can sell your paintings?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Once I bring it home,
Yeah.
some copyists actually do commissions. I've never done that. I've never done a commission. I've been purchased after I've taken it home. Yes.
What are the Tanner pictures in the museum that you might do?
There was one that really looked like a sergeant painting. Seems like he was and I remember that being the whistlers and the sergeants.
Yeah.
Where those are.
Did you see the Annunciation one?
I've seen it online.
In Philadelphia?
Yeah.
The big one? Would you ever tackle that?
I don't know. You know what? I'd probably tackle the fire
Oh,
at the theater house.
okay, I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah, go online. It's not one of my favorites, don't get me wrong, but at least I've had access to that type of, that
Yeah.
quality of work.
It's huge.
Yes,
Did you exhibit at FCC a little while back when they
I
had?
did with Chris Badden and,
Mhm. And did you have a painting that you inserted some humor in the far left corner?
I could have.
I'm specifically
Am
referring to
I under?
I think it was the Moran with the Native Americans.
Oh, no.
That was that you?
That was Chris Madden. He's a local here in
Okay.
Frederick.
Yeah, okay.
And he
Okay.
put a McDonald's,
Yes, you did. Okay, got it.
a golden arches
Yeah.
in that Moran painting.
Okay.
Yes, he did. So that wasn't me. You can't blame me. Any others? Yes, sir.
When you finish a painting in the museum and take it home, do you ever look at it in your studio and say, you know what, I still have more work to do, I'll finish it in my house, in my studio?
I think it, but I've never done it. Again, long stem, there's no way I'll get the same, nothing the same. If that makes any sense. Some copyists do. Some of them will actually do a cartoon, a grid, and bring it in so they can get that closer authenticity. But again, if you want to learn how to draw, you probably need to start from scratch.
Sounds like you learn a lot by copying.
I have, and again, for the longevity, it's paid off for me personally.
Yeah.
So rewarding.
Or when you mentioned the one at the Ringling Gallery,
Yes.
it was like seeing an old friend for you or something. It sounded like.
Can you believe that? And then I contacted them. So that had been like 20 years ago. When I first went to the Ringling. I was working for the federal government, and we had a field office in Sarasota. And I was looking for galleries and stuff. And I go in, and I pop in, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Are you serious? This painting is there. And there is a school, Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota. At that point, I'd actually had real strong thoughts about moving to Sarasota when I retired. Seriously, I hate the cold. My hands are cold now. And it's a beautiful, and I had already talked to that museum, had gotten permission from the National Gallery as a copyist, that I would actually be able to copy there. They have some beautiful works down there. And then I would have been able to teach, if I wanted to, at the Ringling School. But 20 years later, I'm still in metropolitan DC, meeting wonderful people like you.